Well, I mean, right now they're playing chess. And but then he gets another guy. The second best deal I've seen in 20 years. Based on the first guy, he saw that what he got, so this guy got 2 points more, put up double the money. But they've got non-dilutable stock. So the 6 and the 8% guys, they will have more than he has when it gets down to when it's a $2 billion company. They will have more. Now, what on an IPO, what the Goldman Sachs will say is we don't believe in non-dilutable shares, which is not true. They'll say that it doesn't look good to the public shareholders, which it doesn't. They ain't lying about that. So the longer they can keep from going into the public market, the better off for those two non-dilutable shareholders, which were both, the first angel was a true gift from God. The second guy saw the gift from God, so, he ponied up. But those are rare. But now, because the guys have done it, we're having other gifts from God. Because if you don't ask, you don't motherfucking get. And I hadn't seen non-dilutable shares, fucks, in decades. But now the kids, are hear the tape. So the guys from about April this year are out there, not demanding it, but when they're and they're using this as an. You don't have the name of the deal, and you don't, because I don't want him to get all fucked up, and people hounding him. But now he's got the third, fourth, and fifth deal, which I believe on the Zoom call, that wasn't a Zoom call. That was a Zoom call, but it wasn't the final Zoom call. The final Zoom call that Bill was on, he had 3, 4, and 5, and I just gave him 6, 7, and 8 from another country. That were Bird's Nest, one of you in another country, which is, it sounds like 800 kilometers away, but I mean, in Europe, everything's pretty close. And he's right. Especially in the old iron block countries, healthcare is even more hot because they didn't have any growth for years and years and years. And the Iron Curtain only fell, when the wall came down, more or less, for sure. And there's a lot of deals. There's a lot of deals everywhere. But he was able to roll up big hospitals out of the Rick Scott. Congratulations, Rick. I never had any doubt that you would be senator. And the thieving, lying, scumbag Democrats from Florida, my home state. But anyway, I know you take care of them. One way or another, I know, Rick. You take care of them. And... But, he's just a regular guy. Bill was at the hardcore with him last Christmas, and just unassuming, right? No alpha male, no nothing. Quiet, introvert. He was wearing his $3,000 sports coat there in the film, which was his net worth before. And now, of course, that's all history now. Because once it happens, you don't remember the scar tissue, but it's not as fresh. The scar tissue is not as fresh. And I'm proud as hell of him. But now the tendency, we got to consolidate. We got to this. We got to, and I now just keep going to the whip. Senator-elect Scott didn't spend time consolidating. He just, because those horses eventually die under the whip. You want them to die. Drop, carrying your fucking chariot. Drop dead, and then you just have the slaves put another fucking horse in there. That's what you want. And that's not what your mommy and daddy taught you. And for some of you that have been, had world-class coaches, train you in your athletic endeavors. I mean, they push you till you drop. Now, it's an awful thing. The University of Maryland, the kid died in practice. But when you American football, I mean, occasionally, and the Board of Regents said it wasn't the coach's fault. The students, the snowflakes, came up and rioted, and they fired him anyway. They fired the coach. They fired him, rehired him, Board of Regents, they governed the school, and then, I mean, there was an uproar. And so they fired him for that poor kid. And it's an awful thing, the kid. But, I mean, firing the coach isn't going to bring the goddamn kid back. And, I'm sure that the coach would do anything to have that kid not have died in practice. But in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, I mean, kids weren't dying left, right, and center, but kids died in 3-day practice during the summer. Bear Bryant and to name one, Woody Hayes, to name two, Bo Schembecker of Michigan, had a lot of kids dropping from those 3-a-day in the summer. That's, you practice 3 times a day, basically till you throw up and drop. And of course now they've got a phone and they got CNN. There was a desk at the news agencies that reports this stuff. Now one of you printed this out, I guess. But basically, this scientists come clean. Math error was cause of alarming global warming study results. Math error, or in this country they would say maths error. And let's see, so this is about 15 years global warming has been the topic. And everybody, it goes on to say, the articles, they go on to say, and they caught the error 8 or 9 years ago, but they just covered it up. And then finally some professor, he's dead meat, that professor, published it and said what the truth was, that we made a mistake.
Can the chairman call for a vote to get his 10%?
No, he can call for a vote. No, he can't. The major shareholder can call for EGM, but not the minority shareholders. But he's got to get his directors in line, which he does, because they believe in the kid. He's produced now back to back. Now he's got a 3-peat. But I mean, he will get more shares. I said you're stupid not to give him more shares. But if you give him 10 right away, then he'll want 10 more. So you fight over.
You could tie the performance.
Well, you could do a lot of things, but he just turned the reason why it was such a great acquisition is that even with shitty management, it was shitting money. It wasn't shitting money enough for debt service to be covered by free cash flow. That's why he needed an equity infusion, but it was still shitting money. And if hospitals are run right, and the third world country hospitals don't have as many services, don't have 10 MRI machines that cost $4 million each, and they don't have these, and so that's why the margins are bigger. And so, I mean, what takeaway about Peter?
Because he Toastmasters straight up.
Yeah, he went to Toastmasters because he didn't believe his communication skills, even though he spoke well and he wrote very, very well, because that was his job. He went to Toastmasters so he could get better. And the fear that most people have, the chairman replied to him in 2 minutes. Because by definition, everybody that registered in LinkedIn wants something. So, I mean, it's not like you're having to convince them. That's why they register. Yeah, Bill.
A year ago at Hardcore, this was not a done.
No, it wasn't.
He had failure. So he was a very tenacious, very quiet, but very tenacious, and he knew he had something good because he just signed the LOI, but it wasn't a done deal.
Nope.
Until April.
Yeah, and in hospitals, there's a lot of due diligence. That's why the due diligence took 3 or 4 months. The bigger the transaction, the longer due diligence takes until they sign the purchase agreement. But he had the banks warmed up. He knew what they could pay. And, of course, in this particular case, as soon as the equity infusion came, they the bank's like a feeding frenzy, you know. Somebody's going to have skin in the game. And then the next deal was fairly easy because, and once you do a deal, and not once he does 5, I mean, he's away. I mean, and I told him, you can still step on your dick and stumble, but I mean, you'll have to really fuck up. But he's already the biggest operator in the country, and now he's, you know, I told him to mop up the former Iron Curtain countries because they're all about in the same position, although Poland is pretty well got infrastructure as compared to some of the other ones. Lithuanian, Estonia, and there's a couple of names I can't even pronounce, you know, those countries. But and he, you know, he's going to be well, he's already wealthy, but I mean, he's going to be one of the super rich guys of the former Eastern Europe and Europe. From a little shit 35, 36-year-old guy who made 35,000 euros a year, which is about 40 grand in American dollars. I mean, I get so tired for 25 fucking years of saying this story. I mean, God almighty, it's a fucking Allah's miracle that I haven't given up at doing this. The system is so good, but it's like I gotta, and Bill, I gotta beg you cocksuckers to do this shit. Because you're not fucking serious. You're here for a fucking joke, most of you. I'm the last fucking saloon in town. Well, I'll give it a go, and if I can get it, then I'll get, you know. What do I got to lose? I lost 20 grand, plus 2 or 3 grand get here, but 25 grand, well. So at least, you know, I can tell myself, well, I did all there was possible. Every single person in this room can do what he did. Every single, no matter where you are. Actually, now every single person can't do what Rick Scott did, because he you know, he built the biggest healthcare company in the history of the world. Okay, but you can build the second biggest, or the third, or the fifth, or the eighth, and then you're still talking about tens of billions of dollars. And but I mean, most of the people just aren't serious. Any questions about Peter? Yeah.
So he said he took a week to pick his industry. Did he have a background in this, or what made him?
No, he made grants for government contracts. That's what he did. But he hears me since Rick Scott's days. Healthcare, telco, stroke, internet now. The cloud. I don't know what that means, but I was saying cloud, just like I was saying Dream Team before O.J. Simpson got up for murder. I was saying it before him. Okay, well, I've been saying the cloud, just meaning smoke and mirrors. That's what I was meant. But now it is a fucking cloud, and I guess there's more than one cloud, okay? But I mean, the healthcare is hot. It has been for decades. It's going to stay hot because my generation don't want to die, and then the generation that comes after me isn't going to want to die, and because we continue to produce godlike things to keep people alive, sometimes wrongfully, in my opinion. And someday, hopefully, before I'm dead, you're going to be able to take a pill. And like that dream I had, one of my kids, one of you, came up with a cure for everything. Then you gave it away like a fucking moron, and you put it on open source. But we're not too far away from that. And when you talk to the scientist guys, we're not, you know, we're 10 or 20 years away from that kind of shit. Anything about Peter other than it's see, to me it's not so amazing, because I did it. I've done that 25 times, not once, not twice, not 3, 25 times I've done that. If you're 5% as good as me, you're a billionaire. 5% as good as me, you're a billionaire. And if the guys, remember all those prisoners, those pictures? If you ask any of them, If Danny could do it, any fucking mutton head could do it. Which is, of course, they saw a different side of me, you know. I could roll drunks and beat up, you know. In junior high school, we used to go up to the college and beat up college kids when we were in junior fucking high school.
Wow.
We had no fear. Now, once in a while, you know, we'd pick on the wrong college kids, but for the most part, I mean, you know those, you see the Three Stooges, one hits them low, right? The other one hits them high, then that was our methodology, and it worked 95% of the time, but every once in a while you get a guy who was a wrestler. Wrestlers were bad, because they could grapple, they could around, so even if you knock him down, doesn't mean that you had him down, okay? But other than those guys, then we learned we could see what a wrestler looked like then. So we left those guys alone. Yeah, football players went down like a ton of shit. American football players. So it wasn't any great shakes knocking them down. And basketball players were easy because they were so tall. And I mean, but I mean, we have a lot of them. But Peter's the most recent, and of course there's Josh and every 2 or 3 months. Well. Every 2 or 3 months we have, you know, a new one. And anything about, anything else about Peter? I mean, we could show you 100 webinars. How many webinars do we have?
150.
Okay, 100. Okay. Leave off the worst 25. We could show, you know, with the seminar could just be webinars. And me filtering in a story here and there. But we have, as Bill would attest, and I think Bert will agree, we have a lot more webinars and interaction watching guys that have been successful than we did in years before. And we have a lot more of my stories, my tales, if you will, than we did before, because we see that works better. Because you know you want to hear. You're not so much interested in my successes, because you're not me in your mind. You want to hear my fuck ups and some of the outrageous shit I did. That's more interesting to you. But you are interested in the success stories of the kids, because you can relate to the kids. Everybody in this room should be able to have Peter's, I'm not saying his name right, it's pronounced a different way, but Peter's success story, because he's a regular guy. You know, I don't think he's so fucking regular myself. I think he's exceptional, because he's shown he's exceptional through his results. But to see him walk down the street, and he drives a different kind of car now. Just, that's pretty consistent. He wears different kind of clothes now. But I tell everybody, don't get handmade shoes. I'm against handmade shoes because I just can't. I don't see the value in that. You know. But he looks normal, doesn't he? He doesn't sound like Steve Ballmer, does he? No. He sounds more like you guys.
Steve sounded goofy to me. He sounded like a nerd.
Oh, yeah, well, Steve is high on life. You know, I mean, he's, and the 2 or 3 times I've been around him, he's jumping around, and he was calmed down for Oxford. He was calmed down. I mean, he's been like that. The guys that have known him since he was a kid, he's like loudmouth there, you know. He's just been that way all his life. He can't help himself, you know. And by his own admission, Steve has gotten himself in some fucking trouble with that big mouth. Of course, I'm sure you've never gotten in any trouble with your big mouth.
All the time.
Yeah, but you don't have to be like that. Were you raising your hand? Okay, YouTube, go fuck yourself.